Hey everybody, Big Daddy Liberty here. Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Shalom and goeiemiddag. Welcome to another episode of, well, it's not really the Big Daddy Liberty show, excuse me. It's just a vlog. It's a new vlog. Welcome to it, guys. I will be brief. And no, I won't be an hour after I just said I'll be brief. Hey man, it's good to be back. My phone is back finally from the clutches of not only a thief who robbed me of the phone, but also Vodacom, who took forever to get your favorite fat boy back on the network and back vlogging, of course. This is obviously a pre-recorded vlog. I didn't want to do it necessarily live because I wasn't sure if I would have stable network, but this is only relevant. I want to talk about what happened yesterday. Yesterday being the day in which two suspects appeared before the Senekal court, basically, to face murder charges. This is in the case, of course, of young 21-year-old Brendin Horner in that part of the world, in the Free State, who was savagely murdered. Again, underpinning the crisis we're facing in this country of crime in general, yes, violent crime in particular, and particularly even, in a more specific sense, certain categories of very violent crime. In this case, farm murders, which in this country are at a national crisis. A national crisis. We are killing the people who feed this nation. Where else in the world is something as stupefying as this happening? Where the very people who are some of the most productive people in society are being murdered in cold blood. The reasons are varied, of course, but it cannot be denied. That it is a confluence of things which includes an inflammatory political rhetoric in this country, which posits farmers as being an enemy of society, based on race, based on history, and a whole bunch of things. That's what we have in this country. And we're seeing the proceeds of that in innocent people literally being murdered. That is crazy. That to me just remains one of the most massive scandals that typifies us as a society. Massive scandal. And instead of us being a society that speaks about it, that raises awareness about it at a broad level, no, we have a government in this country and a gaggle of politicians who not only deny the problem, but pretty much even downplay it. When you can have a president of the republic basically say, it's not really that much of an issue that these people are being murdered. And if you want to know what he said exactly, you can look for the quote online. And you have a national police minister, who equally, in a flippant manner, in a blasé way, says, we're not going to make this a priority crime. We're not going to make this a priority crime, he says. A damn asshat. And I'm talking, of course, about Upegicele. Yeah, quote me. I called him an asshat. Because he's absolutely useless. He's hot air. Like every other damn politician in this country, he's complete hot air. But will gladly, and this is what makes it even more sick for me, and it really is, it's a sickening feeling, is that the very people who are being murdered, beyond farmers, of course, but in this case, I'm talking about farmers. The very people who are being murdered pay the taxes that pay the salaries of the very politicians who talk nonsense about them. How sickening is that? How sickening is that? And to be honest, I don't even hold much hope for even if they did declare it a priority crime, because if you look at the track record of our politicians, specifically ANC politicians who hold the levers of power when it comes to policing, when you look at their track record, when they do declare something a priority crime, not much happens, eh? Yeah, there's a lot of waffle. There's a lot of, dribbling even at times, but not much in substantive terms actually happens. Don't believe me? Ask the gender-based violence crew. They've also been doing constant awareness, constant raising of the issue of just how much of a problem this is. They've done the marches, they've done the picketing, they've done the protests, asinine as some of them may be, but nonetheless, I'm not there today. But look at how they too, as a lobby, have been vocal in saying, guys, and they have the benefit, by the way, of having been or having had their forms of crimes that they care about declared a priority. But even then, they're still complaining and saying, you know what, there's nothing of real substance that's being done to change the numbers, to change the metrics, which is what you want. But I digress, because I want to come back to the farming community, number one, and the various lobby and the various voices that are really rightly standing with this community and saying, you know what, enough is enough with the violence, enough is enough with the murders. And on the one hand, yes, let's declare this a priority crime, but also let's actually do something about it. I want to talk about those voices today, because at the protest yesterday, this is in Senekal in the Free State, things descended into a little bit of chaos. And, inevitably in all these situations, questions are asked around what happened, why did this happen? Because I saw scenes of a particular group of those who were there protesting, then looking to barge their way into the court, effectively storming the court, and some sort of confrontation happening, a clash happening, and shots being fired. Now, in terms of what was available on video initially, that's what we saw, right? That's the only thing we saw. And there was very little context. And rightly, I condemned that. I condemned those scenes. Because here's one thing I implore everybody to do. You've got to hold the standard, you've got to hold the principles, you've got to hold the moral high ground. No matter how impassioned, no matter how angry you are in a given moment. Rightly so, by the way. I mean, you're rightly angry, and you rightly should be angry on this issue, but you've got to hold the high ground no matter what. Because if you then become the very thing that you're fighting, then how different are you? How effective are you really? If you become the very thing, or you emulate the behavior of the very people who you claim you're fighting, if you then resort to chaos, destruction, a wanton disregard for life, liberty, and property rights, then how different are you then to the people who you're fighting? Guys, we've got to hold higher standards. We've got to, and I know, even as I say this, some of you will be very unhappy, and that's fine. Be unhappy with me, that's fine. But I'm right. I'm right. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point of your whole fight if you're not going to be the sort of people who the rest of society and the international community looks at you and says, you know what, they really are the good guys. If you can't hold certain principles, if you can't hold a standard, if you can't hold a standard, then how does an outsider looking in know that you are genuinely fighting the good fight? But even as I say that, I must also give context, because that incident didn't happen in isolation. And this is the beauty. Whenever I say something online, I always say, guys, if I'm wrong, provide evidence, show me how I'm wrong. I have no problem with conceding when I'm wrong. And in this instance, I wasn't necessarily wrong, but there was greater context to what I saw and what I condemned rightly, which is the police and their behavior. And as I say that, a siren blares past as if to give context to what I'm talking about, the cops. That's an ambulance. The police and their behavior, it is shocking. Because, again, going off of the other accounts, competing accounts, of course, of what happened, that protest started off rightly so as being peaceful and being an expression of South Africans of not only their anger and disgust, but also in memory of not only Brendin Horner, but the now hundreds of people who are dying, who are being murdered. I shouldn't say dying, because it makes it sound like it's, these people are being murdered. But the point I was driving at, is there's context as to why those passions were inflamed like that. And then those people took it upon themselves to storm the court and allegedly burn the police car. Because I have to say allegedly, since I don't know if it was the farmers who burnt that police van. Although I'd be very surprised if it wasn't, insofar as people were angry. People were angry. But all of that didn't happen in a vacuum. There was a context to it. And thank you to those of you who sent clips and said, hey, Big Daddy, this is actually what happened and why that anger boiled over into that confrontation and that clash, ugly scenes as they were. You cannot, as a police officer, drive aggressively into a crowd with a police inyala, which is a armored personnel carrying vehicle for those international audience who may be watching this. You cannot aggressively drive into a peaceful crowd of protesters and be surprised when they respond on some, hey man, you might be endangering the lives of us children and women who are there peacefully protesting. Because that video clip I saw was the most reckless and wanton disregard for people's safety. Driving a armored vehicle, tons of weight at high speed through a crowd of people. And then don't get surprised when those people get inflamed and incensed by that callous behavior, especially because emotions were running high on that day. So yes, I happily will argue that there were two sides to that situation. And for as much as I can condemn the reaction, one has to condemn the behavior of the police. It was absolutely disgusting. It actually left me very angry, to be honest. Because part of the reason why, a lot of people were there protesting is that often these farm murders happen in an environment where the police are very lax. Police are very lax. And then to have those same police acting that way, that irresponsible way, when you're there to peacefully protest, I can get why people get very angry and respond like that. I don't agree with the response, but I can get it. So I wanted to share that and my thoughts on this. Because again, there's always two sides and I always accept that. And one has to be fact-based, evidence-based and the like. But I always say this, guys, and I'll continue saying this. You cannot become the thing that you're fighting. Sorry for the skew screen. It's this bumpy roads. You cannot become the thing that you're fighting, because then an outsider looking in wonders who's the good guy. And I hate to say this, but it has to be said. We who are the anti-farm murders and really who often protest to voice our disgust at the crime levels, we need to do better. We need to do better. We need to hold that high standard. Because things like these, where we descend into chaos, we're disorganized, and we just look like a rabble, then makes those who look in at us kind of go, yeah, hey, but these guys though, did you see how they acted? And now suddenly the whole thing was not even about Brendin Horner. It was about that small group of farmers who acted like that. And that's what actually really got to me. If I'm to be brutally honest and call it down the line, that's what got to me. Is that we know that we live in a country where the elites in this country, that's the mainstream media, the political elites, and the chattering classes, do not like the farming community and often are the ones who push toxic narratives about them. And that they'll be looking for any reason, any excuse to dribble and distract from what we're actually fighting for. And unfortunately, we gave them that. Because now headlines, Wall-to-wall coverage. Oh, look at how those violent farmers were acting. Look at those hooligans of farmers. And they will not even make an effort to give the full and the truth and the full context. They won't even make that effort. Theirs is to continue the narrative. And unfortunately, those scenes give them ammunition. And this is what I'm saying. We've got to be better. We've got to be better. Again, you can hate me for saying this. At this point, I don't really care, because we need to be the sort of people who we should be beyond reproach in how we are disciplined, organized, and have a unity of purpose. And a people who are disciplined, organized, with the unity of purpose have no time for distractions and dribbling, whether that comes from our side or essentially our opponents. So that's my 2 cents. Let me know what you think. You know, should we be able to hold ourselves to a higher standard? Maybe you don't agree with me. Maybe you think, hey man, you know, people should be able to act out like that, because that's some of the arguments people were making online, at least in response to me. Some of you even using race as a justification, which was very weird for me. Very weird for me, because if you know me and my message, I've always said this: I don't give a flying fudge about your race. But no, yesterday online, and it's probably going on at the moment, the different groupings in their little hookies got very upset with me. Both those who trade on being black, who I dismissively call the Blavity Blacks, and those who trade on being white. In this instance, they weren't necessarily the social justice variant, although they also got very upset with me. I love that. I pissed everybody off. Right and left, I piss you all off. I should. Because both on the right and the left, on various issues, you'll quickly expose that these people often don't give a damn about life, liberty, and property rights. They give more a damn about their narrative. And if you can advance their racial narrative, then they'll be happy with you. And I reject that. Mine is not to fight your race wars. Asinine nonsense that they are. Whether you're on the left or the right, because it's absolute nonsense. It's childish. Grown-ass adults out here saying, oh yeah, you know, we whites are this, we blacks are that. I don't give a fudge about that. I give a fudge about you as a human, a person. Your rights, your life, your liberty, and your property rights matter to me because you're a human being, damn it. Not because you're white or you're black. Cannot believe South Africans. We fall for this nonsense. My goodness, I'm actually really angry. Because it's bitterly disappointing to see people talk like this. It's like, my God, when are we going to let go of race? What are you fighting for? Your race? Why? What does it say about you? But I digress slightly. What I really wanted to argue is that our farmers, and especially those of us who lobby for and advocate for their rights, their lives, their liberty, and their property rights, excuse me, yikes, they deserve better. We need to be better. If you really care about the farming community in South Africa, you need to be of a high standard, highly disciplined in how you advocate for them and how you fight for them. Highly disciplined. Where you're single, almost have to be single-minded in your focus in fighting for their lives, their liberty, and their property rights. Where the goal is to make sure that we're organized, there's a unity of purpose, and we're mobilized to act. And acting means we're looking for hard reforms that actually protects this community. What we're not looking for is chaos and that macho bravado nonsense that I saw. That stuff is getting you nowhere. That stuff is getting you nowhere. The wanton destruction of property because you're angry, that stuff's getting you nowhere. Don't believe me? Ask a lot of the township communities who that's their mode of transmitting their grievances. But do they get assisted in real terms? Are their issues really attended to? No, they're not. They too are given lip service by the politicians, even with the destruction of property and all that nonsense. Which begs the question, why do it in the first place? But yeah, maybe that's just my house in terms of holding the line, being principled, holding a higher moral standard. Maybe that's just my house. Maybe I'm alone in that. I don't know. As always, you let me know. You let me know what you think. But the one thing I refuse to do, the one thing I absolutely refuse to do, is suddenly break you guys up into racial groupings and say, no, yeah, I fight for life, liberty, and property, but for white people, I fight this way. For colored folk, I fight this way. For Indian folk, I fight this way. For my black folk, I fight this way. Oh, people. God willing, I will win this fight. I will win this fight for pushing us into becoming a non-racial society, where we actually recognize that the fight should be based on us as individuals, as families, and that we fight as individuals and families for our life, liberty, and property rights. You don't fight for your race. You don't fight for your gender and all that nonsense. You fight because you're an individual. You are a God-created individual. When I say I love you to bits, I say that because I recognize you are a God-created individual on this earth. Yo, guys. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? You know? Should we also become the sort of people who resort to chaos and destruction to get our way? And even then, we don't really get their way. We just become people who destroy, and you let me know. If I'm wrong, how am I wrong? Show me in the comments, guys. Let's get that conversation going. Because I really think we need to be the sort of people who hold a higher principle and a higher standard in how we act. Especially as we seek the reforms and the change that we want. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, of course. I really appreciate that. Like this video, share it, and just as a side message, and really the main message, if anything, guys, we must keep the pressure up. We must keep the pressure up. Build on the unity, organize people, mobilize. To not only stop farm murders, but to end the crime in this country, the violent crime that sees us as law-abiding citizens live as prisoners in our homes. That sees us as ordinary citizens being paranoid to even drive around. That's our fight, guys. That's our fight. We need a steely focus on that. Not the other distractions and the dribbling that happens. Stand for each other, guys. Because the day will come where people like me might not be around. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I'm out here on the ground in dangerous communities doing what I'm doing, spreading my ideas of liberty. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I might be killed. I might, crash and die on the road. Sorry, I know I took this in a very dark place, but I'm trying to give a realistic sense of I'm mortal, and this should not be a man-alone job. We should all be part of doing this, reaching out, pushing liberty ideas, and changing the society to be one where we fight for a non-racial, prosperous, free, and liberty-leaning society. That's what I want. Guys, we've got a country to save. We've got a country to save. And we cannot do it if we continue playing the race games and the gender blah, blah, blah games. But that being said, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video, share, please. Share widely and get the conversation going. I'll try my level best to read as many of the comments as possible. And remember, you can support the work that I do. You can do that by either donating on Patreon from as little as $1 a month, that's $20 a month, or, you know, PayPal. You can donate directly. I really appreciate it. All of it goes into just sustaining the work. My accommodation, my traveling, and all the bells and whistles that go into the ground war and the groundwork. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate y'all. But the best thing you can do is share this video, like the page on YouTube, on Facebook. That's the Big Daddy Liberty page and the Big Daddy Liberty Show. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube. Let me know what you think about this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. But hey, remember, as I always say, never trust a commie.